9:14, right here on the link. We're brought to you by Pacific Points, Cabo Enterprises, ITD and Jack in the Box. Wednesday, 5th day of January. Mary Rhodes, the president of the Guam Hotel Restaurant Association, joins us here in the KUAM News Link Zoom room. Good morning, Mary.
Hi, good morning. Half a day.
Long time. Happy New Year. Haven't seen you since last year.
I know.
Never gets
That's
old.
usually a good thing because then I'm not harping on something.
Right.
But it's a great way to start off the year in just reminding everybody about a couple of things,
Right.
as Superintendent Fernandez mentioned earlier. But thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's good to catch up.
Can we just start with something we were talking about during the break? You were saying that there have been reports of some restaurants allowing more than 25 indoor, which confused me because and it's sad, I'm in the media, I should know it, but I don't even know what the guideline is now. I know there was an increase of the gathering limit, right? But so what is the guideline, the guidance and the protocol for restaurants and business establishments right now?
Right. So on December 17th, the guidelines were updated with the memo is 2022-08, and that's the most recent. And so I will send that to you and Jason to post on the site as well as Nestor. And 2022-08, if you look at section D1, it refers to the increase of 100 packs, 100 people being allowed to dine outdoors only. So the increase to 100 was for outdoor dining only for vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals. That is the only change. For indoor dining, it remains at 25 for vaccinated only. And so over the last month, I have heard some concerns regarding either individuals or organizations having events or just get-togethers at restaurants or hotels, or any kind of space, even an event space, where gatherings have increased, where they misunderstood the 100 to be indoor. And so we need everybody to understand the guidelines remain at 25 for indoor for social gathering. What might be confusing for people is that restaurants and hotels have not been limited. It stays at 100% occupancy, but that does not mean that your gathering is allowed to maximize the occupancy of that restaurant. A gathering has to remain at 25, but that doesn't mean that the restaurant or hotel needs to limit everybody, because they can have multiple reservations as long as those reservations aren't related to each other, where you're trying to bypass the maximum of 25 per group. So they are allowed to operate at 100% capacity, but they have to keep reservations or groups no more than 25 for indoor dining.
That was just...
And 100 for outdoor dining.
Right. And so I've seen pictures. I know the lieutenant governor had a birthday thing. And then also I've been hearing that government agencies have been having events at hotels with more than 25 people. So is there a different set of rules for Gov Guam or?
No, the only clarification I do know that public health has allowed is really for meetings or trainings where you're not serving food indoors. And so that has been allowable for organizations or agencies where they can meet. But as long as social distancing is maintained, there's no food being served. So therefore, you're maintaining the mask for indoors. But if you're serving food, it should remain at 25, no more than 25. And so those are really important, especially as, we were dealing with the holidays. And I know that the governor did address this during her public address the other day that, after Christmas and New Year's, we're going to expect an increase similar to the last surge that we had with Delta variant over the summer. There's going to be an increase because people are just gathering in general or traveling. And so it's really important that we are mindful of what the guidelines are and we continue to maintain social distancing, washing our hands, and just really keeping up with what we're supposed to be doing, regardless of what holiday season we're in.
Yeah, it's just very inconsistent because, like I said, and I don't want to make it awkward for anybody, but when I see pictures of fundraisers and no one's wearing a mask and it's like lottie dottie, but then on the other side of our mouth, it's like, oh, we got to be safe, we got to be vigilant. There's a looming impending super typhoon of a threat. It's just a little, I mean, inconsistent, right? And that's what we were told. The governor said, prepare as if we're getting a super typhoon. And you've been through a super typhoon. You don't wait till the wind's blowing 200 miles an hour to run out in the middle of it and put up the shutters.
Yeah, and of course, it's timed with the increase in positive tests, right, of over 200. So we have to be extremely vigilant, but also consistent with how we're doing things. And that's why, with GHRA, I've been hearing some of these situations where people are going over the capacity requirements on social gathering, and it is confusing that restaurants and hotels are allowed 100%, but that's because they can maintain social distancing between groups. But we cannot have social gatherings over 25 at this time until everything is updated. And honestly, we have been asking for considerations for the guidelines because the fact that outdoor dining is at 100 and we can have, social distancing maintained, to reconsider that guideline. And we were hoping that we would be able to go up to 100 over the holidays, knowing that more than, we have a very large percentage of those who are vaccinated, but they did not allow for that. And that was their decision. And so on December 17th, only outdoor dining was increased. So we have to comply with that mandate. And unfortunately for the businesses, they've had a very hard time really managing all of this because people will try to make different reservations and work around the guideline. And so it's very difficult to police something where public health themselves have a hard time policing, right, and enforcing. And so it puts the businesses in a very difficult place in having to manage that. And, there are ways around it, but we're asking for everybody's cooperation and understanding that the businesses are only enforcing what the government has put on us. And, as much as we'd like to change that, and we have asked over the months to change that, it's what we have today. And with this surge, we don't want to be where we were at with the Delta variant. For certain, we want everybody to be safe. So we're just asking for everybody's cooperation. I notified the hotels and restaurants again yesterday, just, asking for their cooperation in ensuring that we maintain this because we don't want to go backwards. We want to continue moving forward. And, one of the things that I know has deeply impacted everybody is obviously loss in revenues. And I know you wanted to bring up with the military, and that has helped bring additional revenues to Guam. But some people don't realize that outside of these large visits, we've had regular visits from international carriers as well as U.S. carriers. And it's helped really maintain a lot of the businesses for hotels and the restaurants and rental cars and other places. But the military has been very good about making sure that they do have restriction of movement. They do have those who are coming outside of the fence are fully vaccinated. And we even have shore patrol in there. So we have been really working well with the military and with Joint Region Marianas to make sure that everybody is safe while we're still trying to conduct normal business, which is really the only business we have currently, especially with what's going on within Asia with Korea and Japan recently. So although we're grateful, we are continuing to remain vigilant and ensure that we are still complying with everything and working with the military to make sure that they are too complying. So even though masks aren't allowed on base or they have the option, they have to still wear it outside the fence because it is mandated outside here on Guam. So those are things that we continue to work with the businesses to ensure that everybody is complying. So we just ask for everybody's cooperation. When you are dining, we truly appreciate the support that everybody's been giving to these businesses, to these covered establishments. But please understand that it is for your safety as well as the employee safety and the public safety that we just do not exceed the social gathering limit at this time.
Do you still hear of instances where potential customers are like, I hate the mask, or I don't need the vaccine, or whatever? Because you guys are in that position where you have to be kind of enforcing public health mandates.
Yeah, especially since the CDC, right? They changed it in September where mask is not required. And then when the military changed that out last month, it's very challenging to try to explain that to the customer that we don't necessarily always follow CDC's guidelines, but Guam's guidelines still requires the mandate of the mask. And as you've seen, even CDC and even some other states have gone back on it and they've re-implemented the mask mandate. And so what matters is what we have to deal with on Guam. And so it's very challenging and difficult when the employees, the frontliners at the service and covered establishment has to really enforce this. And so that's why we're asking for the public's cooperation and just understanding that these frontliners are doing their job and just really trying to put out what the government has mandated. And you're right, it's going to take the whole community. And it's unfortunate that we continue to see these variants, regardless of what Guam does. Just the fact that this is still going around, and so it's a long haul. This is COVID. As it's shown, as it's proven to be, it'll continue to have various variants, and so we have to learn to live with this. Unfortunately.
Are you talking about mandates? How about GHRA and mandate with the vaccine for the employees and all that?
That's still in effect. I know that the federal government, that's still in the court system. And so in mandating vaccines, but that's still in effect, obviously, for covered establishments. So the key here is companies with federal contracts still are supposed to do it, but that hasn't gone into effect because it's still being challenged by the courts, which is through the Biden administration. But here on Guam, through covered establishments, anywhere where your mask comes off to eat or drink, that mask mandate and vaccine mandate is still required. And so GHRA is still testing upon request. I know that there are different testing sites for the unvaccinated. And so GHRA still has tests available if businesses still want to go through us. And so we've been regularly testing for those who need it. And there are employer groups who have been authorized and trained by public health as well, and we can assist you in getting that authorization if you need it. Or you can contact Public Health's lab and just work with them, with Evelyn. So that's still all in effect. That hasn't changed. And that's also in 2022-08, the guidance on December 17th.
Have you heard anything about, because I know that this has come up in a bunch of different conversations about changing the definition of fully vaccinated to include the booster shot? Is that something that you guys are preparing for, or do you anticipate the governor further mandating that?
I have not seen that yet. I haven't heard that too much because, the numbers aren't as high with the boosters, and that would just be another, big hill to climb. I think it's important just to try to educate and get everybody out there to try to get their booster shots, but to put another mandate on top of businesses and employees who are the only ones working in the industry would just further exacerbate the situation, because right now businesses are having a really hard time getting people to work, right? So, or to hire. It's been very challenging as of late. So to add in more restrictions, I think would just be counterproductive at this point. We need to work with the restrictions we currently have and just try to educate and encourage people to do the right thing and get their boosters. And again, some people just aren't able to get it, whether through medical reasons or whatever, if they didn't get the vaccine. So, but availability is there. Obviously, I know some people have been waiting for Pfizer, and we do have that now, but they've always had the Moderna boosters. So I think supply is not an issue right now, so people can definitely go out and get it. But the booster shot is not mandated at this time. I think fully vaccinated still remains at the first 2 shots.
All right. LEAP, the Local Employer Assistance Program. This was half ARP, half local funding, signed into law. So what's the status with the LEAP?
Yeah, GITA has had the LEAP program published since, I believe, second or third week in December, immediately after the legislature passed it. And so it's available on investguam.com. If you want to apply, the guidelines are there, the application is there. It also has a list of all the companies who have applied thus far, and there are 819 companies who have applied for LEAP. And so please, I encourage all businesses, the stakeholders worked really hard to get this through in a very quick amount of time, considering how long things take, not just here on Guam or anywhere with regards to funding or even these types of grant or forgivable loan programs to put together. So kudos to GITA for really getting this out, and the government, especially with the legislature passing this through. So it is available at investguam.com. Application and guidelines are there. And please, everybody who has been impacted by this pandemic and has lost revenue due to especially tourism not being available at this time, please apply, because what we would like to see is an overwhelming response for LEAP, where we can definitely, especially with Omicron and any further delays with our key source markets like Korea and Japan and Taiwan and even the Philippines, any further delay only heeds to ask the question, right? Begs to ask the question, what is the next stage? Because this funding through LEAP was really only intended to take place this first part of the year. And so we're hoping really for an overwhelming response, because we know a lot of businesses have been hurting. And with the challenges of even tourism being extended out through summer at this point, with airlines not coming to Guam, I know that businesses are going to be in further need. And so we can only be able to display that or to show, need for that if we have an overwhelming response. So we encourage all businesses to please apply. And it is a forgivable loan program. So there are caveats to it, where you do have to hire employees and be open. And so you have to be careful, because you need to be able to meet those requirements. Otherwise, your loan won't be forgiven. And so all of the guidelines are clearly defined, and you can find more information at investguam.com.
How many businesses are applying for it? And what is if you know, what is the award?
Right now, we have 819 companies who have applied thus far. The award is up to, I believe, 300,000. They were considering possibly 500,000, but that was based on expecting 600 companies to apply. And so I know that they reconsidered that number because of the sheer size of the number of possible applicants. So as you can see, we're already over that number of 600, estimated at 819. And so that award is up to 300,000. It's not a guarantee you're going to have 300,000, because you have to prove that those are your lost revenues during that period on the application. And so it's a fairly easy application, similar to all of their other programs that they've put out with the Small Business Grant Program. And so it's really important that you read through it, submit all the paperwork, and get in as soon as possible.
Right. And this is still ongoing, and they can apply for this through GITA, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Mary,
and then just so you know, GHRA actually last week, along with other organizations, we were awarded a grant for some of our training. And so we're going to be announcing that in February, where we've been awarded separately 2 different grants, one for 50,000 and another for 25,000. And the second grant, we're going to be paying for everyone who becomes one of our students under our training program. We'll be paying for their health certificate renewal or brand new health certificate, government licenses, and also provide them training through American Hotel Lodging Association. So that's for any new or returning employees who go back to work, so that they can get their government certificate, training, and also get certified by AHLA, so that we can get you ready to go back to work or to return to work.
How's the restaurant business doing? Kind of seems like it's booming. I mean, I don't know.
I've
definitely been doing my part, Mary.
Say that again.
I've definitely been doing my part.
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't dine in, definitely the food delivery service business has increased, and I think that just in general, people have been very supportive through the local community, and of course, we encourage that. That's actually the safer way to dine at this point is the takeout delivery service. But even for dining in, we've seen an increase. After the Delta variant, obviously, I was on your show and we talked about how devastating that was, especially with the guidelines changes of 2019 through 21. And it really had a negative impact on businesses. But now with some of the adjustments and the increases, we have seen the businesses be able to recover and recoup some of that. But that's through the holiday season, so a lot of people are willing to spend a little bit more. But PUA dollars have run out, if not already running out. And I think it's going to be a lot more challenging. And as people are either saving or have spent, I think that, this year is going to be a tougher year because of the lack of federal dollars. So I just think that the government has to be very careful of how they're going to be spending the rest of the ARP money and any of the infrastructure money, knowing that we're going to have to be able to survive the next 2 years. And so that's my plea to the government to really consider more funding for private sector, more funding for the community, and really reconsider some of the dollars that they had possibly already committed to certain programs or types of purchases, because I think we have to really think more long term.
Yeah, I'm all for more assistance for the community. What about the premium pay for essential workers allowed under the American Rescue Plan, Mary? I think we'd asked the governor about it. I can't recall what she said, but it's a thing. People know about it.
I think honestly that's kind of a slippery slope because who's an essential worker? A lot of people worked throughout the pandemic, and not just frontline healthcare workers. There were a lot of frontline employees who worked throughout. And so how do you define that? Similar to other things that have been awarded recently, right? Is every time you do something, it's going to get questioned. Well, what about this other group? And so anytime you introduce new, whether it's essential pay or the PINs or anything like that, you have to really be careful because there's always going to be a group. You can't satisfy everybody. And can we really afford to pay all those? There's already, I think that there are already government agencies that are owed monies from years past on essential pay or hazard pay or differential or whatever it is. That if we keep adding layers on top of it, it's just challenging because we don't have that much money. If you still have debt and you still have, monies owed to employees that are liabilities, I think that to add on more at this time would be very dangerous because even though it's well-deserved, I think that everybody is well-deserved at this point if you worked throughout the pandemic. Yeah. And so how do you define that? And so that's really an HR and a legal issue. And how do you have parity, right? Parity amongst all lines. And as I've always said, frontline workers aren't just healthcare, it's also our tourism employees, anyone who is in the service industry. Media, there's all sorts of frontline workers who have worked throughout this pandemic.
I'm sorry, did you say media?
Even media.
Hey, the media.
But you have Zoom now, so Zoom's a little easier.
Hey, I was out there at the food lines in the height of the lockdown, so yeah, there was definitely exposure. I mean, we're not asking for anything though. Hotels managing with the continued slowdown in tourism, how's that going?
It's the same. I mean, we can only do so much with military business and with staycations. It doesn't replace the revenue of 1.5, 1.6 million tourists who obviously pay a higher daily rate. And so it's very challenging. And I think for the businesses that currently have military business or high demand with the local community, I think it's been great. It's been good for them because they can cover operational costs. But it's not like, there are huge margins in all of that. And so we're very grateful, I think, for the business that we currently have. And that's why it's really important to take care of our local community and military partners, because right now we have to look internally of what we have. And we can't grow further if we don't take care of that first, right? And so we have to prove to the foreign markets that we're safe to open. And so that's why it's really important that we continue to keep the eye on getting our community to be able to get through all of this first and foremost. And that includes the military community as well.
Mary, thank you so much for your time. It's always a great, Nestor sent me some questions for you, and he cracked me up because he goes, if you just ask her two of these, she'll just go on forever. And that's kind of exactly what happened.
Yeah, I'll touch on all the points,
Right.
hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm on mark, and then I know that you will definitely ask me the question if I don't touch on it. But it has been a while, and I really appreciate it. And it seems like it's been rather quiet, but, things are still slowly progressing.
Yeah.
And that's my only concern, is that we've had progress, right? Although it's minimal and slow moving, we've had some progress in the last couple of months. And I just am concerned that if we don't do this right with the Omicron, that it's only going to further delay our recovery.
Right.
And so we have to be smart about this and continue to maintain what we've been doing, and programs like LEAP and anything else that we can do with GHRA or any other agency to improve our efforts, I think are extremely important in order to sustain ourselves.
Last question. Are properties taking advantage of this lull in tourism activity to improve and or renovate?
Some people have. This might not be well known, but the qualifying certificate program, the one regarding any improvements to hotel rooms to make them larger and for higher end customers, that was recently renewed for another 5 years. And so businesses have like a Subaki or even the Fiesta that will be having a grand opening with the Crown Plaza. That will be happening soon. And I know that 2 other hotels have gone through Land Use Commission recently, potential hotels. And so there are some capital improvement or capital development projects being entertained at this point. So again, these programs through GHRA are only going to help incentivize business owners or investors to put more money into Guam so that we can have a better product overall. Some businesses have continued to make investments. And so I don't think that people are taking advantage of the lull in the fact that they're just being complacent. Some businesses have really taken that on. And then other businesses who have benefited from even the shuttered venue grant or the other ones that they've gotten through the federal program, they have to use that towards certain things, right? So there's a lot of activity taking place through federal dollars, not just military business development, but also out in the community through private sector and even government. A lot of infrastructure is being addressed at this point. And so I think those are the small wins that we have, is while we don't have tourists, as long as we're making these improvements and not being complacent and taking advantage of the dollars that we do have to reinvest in our infrastructure and our facilities and our community, is what we should be doing as a government and as an island.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Be safe.
You too.
Okay, right on. 9:43. Let's keep it going here and go over to